The Sandy and Toddcast is a Mindgarden Media podcast in association with
Screw You, Todd
Productions. Another Sunday, another Sandy and Toddcast, and it is still Ghostober.
And it is Sunday. We've been doing a lot of recording on Sundays, so we're actually like in the moment now. We're not doing it on Friday or Saturday or, it's Sunday. So episode 3, we're ready to go. Ghostober.
Ghostober, we're going to talk about a lot of things that tie into October and Halloween and all that fun stuff and paranormal as well. Stick around. The Sandy and Toddcast is next. It's season 10, episode 3. Ghostober continues on the Sandy and Toddcast.
Hey guys, it's me, Sandy.
And this is Dave, better known as #Poor Dave.
We don't always call you that. Anyway, in case you didn't know, Dave and I are part of a great new show called Empire Spirits.
It's where we hunt lots of ghosts in some of the most well-known bars and restaurants in central New York, along with a great cast
of characters.
Yep, Bill Vinci, Michelle Classic, Ryan Vinci, Lafayette Cunningham, and Heather Elias.
You'll be able to see each episode starting this fall on Facebook and YouTube.
Just like our Facebook page, Empire Spirits CNY, to keep up to date on the latest.
But we can't leave you without thanking our sponsors because, well, without them, it just wouldn't be happening.
So a big thanks to the Stife on Varick Street in Utica, Bill Vinci and the Empire Plate, Utica Coffee Roasting Company, and the Sandy and Toddcast.
We'd also like to thank Northeastern Roofing and Construction, northeasternroofs.com, Labella Flowers, that's labellaflowers.com, and Independent Artistry by Dawn Marie, Independent Artistry by DMF.com.
And we can't forget licensed real estate person Paul F. Sacco, 315-525-1377, with Howard Hanna Real Estate Services, or Joshua A. Amodio with Priceless Inspections, Central New York's top choice home inspector since 2012, 315-525-8725.
Now, back to the show.
Broadcasting from two very different yet magical places not found on any map. Get ready to discuss the strange, weird, ghostly, crazy, spooky, and odd things that take place around us each and every day, all while having a little bit of fun. This is the Sandy and Toddcast. Welcome to the Sandy and Toddcast. She is Sandy.
He is Todd.
And we've got a lot of stuff to get to today, all to do with Ghostober.
Ghostober. Have you been watching any of the shows on like Discovery Plus
Nothing.
for Ghostober? I'll do a really quick review of a couple of them.
Okay.
Because Dave and I, now that we have a hard time because we're huge baseball fans, Mets, and we're huge hockey fans, the Rangers. So there's this one window of time every year. Well, actually 2. There's one in the spring and one in the early fall where both sports are playing at the same time. And it's like the biggest stressor for me in the world because I do not do well with too much activity at once. It's probably something to do with like the energy and the empath and all that stuff, but I don't do well with too much. And Dave will sit there and literally go back and forth between hockey and baseball. And so you've got all this craziness going on top of the games, and it's just too much for me. So we've finally gotten out of that, and now we're just with hockey. But that means we have a lot less TV time taking up our time.
Yeah.
So we watch. So I always look forward to, for many reasons, Ghostober every year. So been watching a couple of Ghostober type stuff. Now there was a show that was done. There's a paranormal investigator named Tim Wood. He's been on several things over the years and a little lesser known, but he's interesting. I'll leave it at that. And he does a show now called The Ghost Town Terror. It's about this woman who and her family who bought this like town. And there's one of these in California, too. Different era, like the one in California is Victorian houses and stuff. And Jack Osbourne did one of his Nights of Terror there with his sister Kelly Osbourne. This one is more like Wild West. It's like in Montana. It's just outside of Anaconda, Montana. And this woman bought this house, this ghost town, essentially, with her family. And it's, from what I understand, it's a bunch of different old buildings that were brought together to form a ghost town, right?
Right.
And they have some horses and goats and chickens, and there's a church on the property that was brought in and all kinds of stuff. So long story short, the family is having all of these issues. In the first season, which just kind of ended abruptly because it wasn't really finished per se. They may have ran out of money. I don't know.
Right.
It was dramatic.
I think I've seen this, right? You made me watch this, right?
I made you watch at least one of the episodes. It was dramatic. It was probably a little bit overly done and dramatic.
Yeah.
But it was entertaining. It was entertaining. And she had some sort of exorcism at the end of the first season. I thought it was done. Well, they came back. So now it's season 2, like a year later. And so Dave and I have been watching that. And again, a little overly dramatic, but more like a mystery. Instead of reality, it's more like a mystery kind of show now to me. I mean, it's considered a reality show, and so it's actually not that bad. It's sort of like watching a movie in parts. And so we're up to, last night we watched episode 3 of season 2. And it's a little dramatic because, with us being actual paranormal investigators, we kind of know how this stuff works.
Right.
And it's interesting, but it's a good show. So I would say, if you need something to watch, Ghost Town Terror with Tim Wood. And there is a psychic on there that...
is it the same one from the first season?
Yes.
Okay.
And I do like her.
I do too.
I do like her.
I've seen her in some other stuff too, right?
Yes. And she reminds me of me, whereas she's not like to me, a Cindy Kaza, a Michelle Belanger, they are like upper echelon.
Yeah.
I mean, these women are absolutely amazing. And I'm just kind of learning, but she's better than I am, but not better, but she's more advanced in her understanding of things than I am. But she still kind of goes according to feelings a lot and names and things like that. So I really like her. So I enjoy watching her work in this. She does a little investigating with them too. Some people assume that because you're psychic, because you're a medium, because you're sensitive, that you know all the answers to everything.
Right.
And that's not the case. I can go into a place and I can pick up names and I can pick up feelings and emotions. I can see movies and stuff, but I don't know all the answers. I don't know everything that's going on. I can know somebody's male, but I don't necessarily know what his name is. So it's kind of neat and fun to watch her working too, because she's a lot more in my realm of everything.
I think too, like when people are psychic or medium or whatever, the thing you have to keep in mind is, as a normal human, if an incident happens, if an event takes place and you talk to one person who witnessed it, you're only getting that person's account of what happened.
Right.
There could be 100 other people that experience the same thing, but their account is different. So as a medium or psychic or whatever, sometimes you're only getting messages from one source. You're not getting all perspectives.
That's true. And the other thing is that we're all different.
Right.
So, no one medium or psychic medium, empath medium, nobody is exactly the same. What I get, I may not even pick up on something. If you put 2 of us in the room together, they may pick up on one thing and I won't. And I'll pick up on something that they won't. And so you have to really understand the individuality of people who have these abilities because we're not always going to pick up on all of the same things. So it's kind of neat for me to just see somebody who is similar to me. Now, like you and I were talking several weeks back about Cindy Kaza versus Amy Allen on The Dead Files, one of our favorite shows. And two totally different sets of abilities, in my opinion.
Right.
I kind of lean more towards Cindy and the things that I can do, whereas Amy is a physical medium, and that's why it takes such an incredible toll on her. I guess I am to some extent because their energy, when I'm working, their energy does affect me. We all know that. But I think for an actual physical medium, it's a lot more draining, more taxing, more toll taking. So I don't lean as much towards Amy's abilities as I do a Cindy. Michelle Belanger just blows me out of the water. Like, I don't even understand this woman, the confidence she has. Now, she's known her whole life that she had these abilities. So, I mean, but the confidence that she has, and she just knows she's spot on. Just amazing. Amazing. So anyways, Ghost Town Terror, I say go for it. It's entertaining. It's interesting. I like seeing the old buildings, and I like the episode that we watched last night. They were in two very old hospitals. So that was neat. Yeah, that was really cool. So that one. And then Jack Osbourne has his Night of Terror season series of episodes for this Ghostober. I think there's going to be 3 of them, if I'm not mistaken. He had, we've watched 2 so far. He had Chip Coffey on for the first one.
Yep.
And
his mom, right? His mom was on that one, too.
Oh, his mom was the first one. Chip Coffey was the second one. And I'm not sure if he's having Michelle on for the third one. I'm not sure who that's going to be. Excellent. Now, I love Jack Osbourne.
Yeah.
And even Dave really likes Jack Osbourne because of the fact that he's not afraid to admit when he's scared, when he doesn't know what to do, when, you know, he's a little unsure of what's going on. But he's also confident in understanding that he is going to be like that, and that, you know, he's very curious. And so I think his shows are so well done. I wish he'd do like a regular series. I miss Portals to Hell, and I wish he'd get back into a regular series. I guess only time will tell. But Jack Osbourne's Night of Terror for this season, everybody watch it. It is so good. It is really good. And he's doing places that I don't know anything really about.
Yeah, it's not places that everybody's, you know, gone and investigated, which is something I like, because I'm kind of tired of seeing the Waverly Hills and the blah, blah, blah. Yeah, exactly.
Sometimes it's just so overdone. It's like we've seen a lot of activity, we know, but I like new places.
Yeah.
So I think that's one of the reasons why, and don't get me wrong, if I was closer to some of these places, would I go to Waverly? Sure, I'd go to Waverly. I mean, it's Waverly. But I like going to places that not many people have been to or know about, because it's like learning something brand new.
Right.
It's like first day at a brand new school. You know, you're learning something brand new. So those are 2 really good ones. Dave and I are getting back into Paranormal State with Ryan Buell that we haven't seen in ages. So we've been watching a few of those lately. And Friday night, I had to miss the first webinar of the series that Ryan Buell is doing that I bought the ticket for, but we're probably going to watch the replay tonight. And then there's 3 more of them. So I'm really excited about that, because I like getting different perspectives from different paranormal investigators, well-known or not. I like getting different perspectives, because we've watched several shows like Kindred Spirits and stuff like that, where you and I have actually gotten new perspectives and new ways of doing things. So that's really exciting to me to be able to do that. So just a little bit of Ghostober reviews for a few things I think you guys should watch just to enjoy it.
I've got a couple of Ghostober type things too, and not necessarily from the networks or anything, but some stuff that I wanted to pass along. First off, some very sad news. As this podcast comes out on the 15th of October, yesterday, we lost one of the scariest mothers in a scary movie ever.
Yes.
When we lost Carrie's mother from the movie Carrie, Piper Laurie. She passed away yesterday.
That makes me sad. How old was she? Do you know?
I'm not sure off the top of my head, but I got to say this. There's a lot of scary movies, and to be frank, I think a lot of Stephen King's movies that were turned, or books that were turned into movies were done kind of cheesy. Christine was a little cheesy. Carrie was a little cheesy. Salem's Lot was cheesy. So I don't know that we necessarily always got great scary, but Carrie was a good movie. Mm-hmm. Sissy Spacek played that part very well as Carrie. And her mother, and I remember Piper Laurie talking about like how she came up with the character, because she wanted the character to be very over the top and kind of nuts. And originally the director was like, we can't play it quite like that. And she's like, no, this is the way to go. And she was right. They're all going to laugh at you, and all that kind of stuff. And we'll pray, and all that kind of crap. There's nothing scarier than Piper Laurie in that movie. So
agreed.
Rest in peace, Piper Laurie.
Without a doubt.
Last night, Lisa and I, there is an opera house in Oshkosh.
I'm laughing. All right.
There's an opera house in Oshkosh that we investigated on one of the Haunted State documentary movies, and had some great stuff happen. But they've got a whole month of October stuff, spooky stuff at the Grand in Oshkosh. And they say that the place is haunted, and I think there's probably some stuff that goes on there. At any rate, we went to see what's known as Summoning Spirits with Peter Bowie, is this guy's name. And basically what he is, he's a magician, but he brings in the paranormal background to a lot of his stuff. So what he'll do is he'll tell a story about somebody who died, right? And then he'll do something on stage that kind of ties into it. And one of the things he did was he did this weird thing. He got two people up on stage, and they had, remember like on Little House on the Prairie, the kids would have their slates and their chalk in school. So he had two of those. And what he did was he took them, he put a piece of chalk between the two, and then stacked them on top of one another so nothing could move around and whatever. And one of the people held those two things together, right? Then he asks them their name, and one of the girl's name was Mackenzie, and the guy's name, I don't remember. I'll just call him Harold. Okay. But at any rate, the girl sat there with the two slates together with the chalk. And he said, we're going to try a little seance kind of thing here in a way. So he had the girl, Mackenzie, close her eyes and sit there. And he then said, I want you to wait to feel something. It could be a touch. It could be a tickle. It could be heat. It could be cold. Let me know. I'll ask you after I'll have you open your eyes what happens. So he then goes to the guy. He goes to Harold and taps him twice on the right shoulder. So he brings this girl, has her open her eyes, and he goes, did you feel anything? And she said, yes. And he said, what did you feel? And she said, 2 taps on my right shoulder. So then the crowd's going, ooh, ah, right? And then he's had the guy close his eyes, and he took the soft rag that they had used to wipe off the slates, to wipe the chalk off. He used that, and he just kind of brushed it against her nose. And the guy, who is a very manly type guy, big beard, he didn't want to go on stage. No, I don't want to do it, kind of thing. He goes, well, somebody tickled my nose with a feather twice, kind of thing. So it was really interesting to see that. And then he did this trick at the very end where he had a Ouija board, and he had a guest come up on stage with her cell phone, and they did a EVP session. And he asked some questions, and he held her phone, but they used the normal recording app on it. It was an iPhone and blah, blah, blah. So he asked questions. Is there anybody here? Can we help you with anything? Whatever. When he played it back, there was a voice there on both occasions that nobody in the entire theater had heard. And it was right in the phone. Now, Was it a spirit? Probably not. It was some sort of trickery magic that this guy was doing.
Right.
But it still was kind of like, ooh, this is kind of cool. Like, how do you do that? I don't think it was a ghost. I don't think he was summoning a spirit, really.
Right.
But how did he pull that off? Oh, and here's the other thing. With the two people sitting on stage with the Mackenzie, she opened up the slates so that you could see what was inside them. And her name was on one scribbled and his name was on the other scribbled.
Wow.
He also did this thing, and I'll tell this story really quick. He brought out a Life magazine, and he had the guy choose a random page, and then behind his back, the guy made a circle on the page the size of a dime. Okay. When they brought it out, before he had done this whole thing, he took this big whiteboard and he wrote something down. He goes, I changed my mind. Let me redo this. And he crossed it out and he wrote a different word. So there was a word written that was crossed out in another word. He says to the guy, he goes, okay, look inside that circle and give me the word that's inside the circle. And he gave one of the words. He goes, okay, you sure about that? He goes, well, there's actually two words. I'm going to go with this other word, which was such and such. He goes, are you sure about that? You don't want to go back to the other word? He goes, no. So then he brought out, and sure enough, it was the word that he had written and crossed out that the guy had originally circled, but he used another word, which was the other word that he had written down on this. And again, I know it's not supernatural. I know there's some, but how do people do that?
It's amazing. Like, I've grown up, I've never been like a huge magic person, but one thing that I so appreciate in magic is the idea of you leave everybody going home wondering how the hell you did what you did. Right. Real or not, it doesn't matter whether magic in that sense, not practicing, magic, but real or not, it doesn't matter because the excitement is you're going to be thinking about that for a while afterwards because they're leaving that impression with you. Like, how the hell did that happen? Right. How did they do that? How did he get a voice on somebody else's phone? Right. How in the world did he do that?
With 100 people watching him, Yeah.
I mean, like I said, growing up, I was never much into that, David Copperfield and stuff like that. Never a big deal. Never really went to any magic stuff until I think it was 2015. Dave and I went to Vegas for our 10th anniversary, and with our package, I usually try to do my own arrangements for our vacations, but once in a while, if it's a little bit bigger, I'll go to an agent. So the agent got us this deal where we got 2 free tickets to a Vegas show, and we picked Chris Angel. So we went to the Chris Angel show. It was phenomenal. Now, none of what Chris Angel does is real. Right. But yet we left the place thinking he's so over the top anyways, but how in the world did he do that? So then a few years later, we actually saw him. He came to the casino, which I was surprised by, but he came to the casino by us and we went out and we saw him a second time. Same thing. It's like, how in the world did this man come up with this stuff? This isn't your, pulling a rabbit out of a hat stuff that we grew up with as kids. And so that makes me think of this guy that you saw last night. Did Lisa have a good time? Was she enjoying that?
Yes. There was a point where there were these little bags, like, the lunch bags that you had when you were in school, those little paper bags. And he had a block in each one of them, but one of the blocks had a big spike coming out of it. So it was pointing upwards, and he was taking his hand and he was smashing these bags down. So one of the bags would have the spike that would go right through his hand, right? Right. But for whatever reason, we never got that. Like, he never hit that bag because the spirit of the theater rang a bell if he was going to get hurt, kind of thing. And it just weird and wacky. But we were laughing, and the funniest part of the night was standing in line to go in. They've got these TV screens that are showing like upcoming shows, right? And it's a small community theater, so they're not getting Barry Manilow. They're getting the Barry Manilow tribute act, right? So I don't know what the guy's name is, Harry Danilow or something like that, is coming to, right? And she's like, oh, that's in February. It's for your birthday. Would you want to go see that? And I said, first of all, I wouldn't want to see Barry Manilow, let alone Harry Danilow, right? No, I just would not go. No, I do not want to go see this.
Oh, yeah, but well, I will say, Lisa and I, maybe that's why, like, you have us as your best friends, because we're kind of alike in some ways. Like, I am a fan-alo. I will tell you, I am a fan-alo. Dave took me years and years ago. We were still dating. He took me to see Barry Manilow at SPAC, Saratoga Performing Arts Center, and we were inside because it's, you know, how they have the lawn seats, but then they have the pavilion as well. And we had great seats. And I will say this, he is one heck of a performer. Like, even, I mean, we're talking now 20 years ago that I saw him. He was just here over the summer at that casino again. I didn't get to go, though. I think we were in Gettysburg that weekend. And, but he really is a wonderful performer, and he's a really good guy too. So
no doubt. It would not, you know, it was enough for me to go last night and deal with people last night, because there were a lot of people that, you know. I know. There was a group of people in front of us, and they all had jackets on, and decided before the show started they were going to take them off. And so had to watch these people struggle to get out of their jackets right in front of me. And the guy in front of me, you know, his shirt was the shirt under his sweatshirt jacket was a little too small. So when he took off the sweatshirt over his head, the other shirt came all the way up, and we all got to see his butt crack in his underwear, like right in front of us. And I turned to Lisa and I said, this is why I don't leave the house.
I was just going to say, because Dave and I, we coordinated, we hosted a Halloween party for one of the local charities that we do work for. And that was Friday night. And I just remember saying to Dave like a million times, why the hell do we leave the house? I can't take this anymore. You know, I mean, it's just hard. And yesterday I was exhausted. Who wants to see butt cracks and listen to people laugh ridiculously? I don't know if I'm getting old or if it's just like I'm over it completely now at this point in my life. I don't know.
But there's also that group of people that have to talk really loud because they want people to hear what they're talking
Attention
about.
Seekers.
Yes.
Yep.
And the whole group, first of all, I think our group was the only one that didn't have somebody with a cane. That was the first thing. And certainly with my limp and Lisa's husband has MS, we both could have come with one and then we would have fit right in. But we were the only group without a cane.
That reminds me of the time years ago when I made, and this is kind of paranormal. I made Dave go to the Stanley Theater with me to see Scooby-Doo the musical. And we were the only adults without children there.
Oh my God.
It was hilarious, but it was so cute. It was so much fun. And we went to get something to eat real quick beforehand. And like a lot of the kids dressed up like the characters. Yeah. And there was this one kid I'll never forget. I was like, oh my God, I should have done that. Dave's like, that's one time Dave said, no, you shouldn't have. It was, he was dressed up like Scooby-Doo. He literally had on the full furry costume and everything. And he was standing up at the counter to get the food. And I was just dying. But yeah, so, you know, it's fun to do. I kind of try to put my bubble on when I go to stuff like that so I can enjoy it and kind of like just not be affected by the people around it. But I'm glad you had fun.
Well, and here I want to say this, and I think you'll agree. If you look at the paranormal industry as a whole, and you look at not only TV shows, but you look at events like the one I went to several weeks ago. Mm-hmm. There's not a lot of people of color that go to these things. It's usually white people, right? It's usually white people that live in trailers that, you know, have canes is pretty much what it is. And it's just the way it is. There was a black family there last night, which I was very surprised.
Yeah.
But like they weren't like when shit would move and things were said, they'd be like, oh, They'd be like ready to run out the door because people of color understand you don't mess around with that shit.
Ain't that the truth?
But yeah, it was like, oh my gosh, there's a black family here, a black group, and they responded how I would want them to respond. It was absolutely incredible. I'm
so glad you had a good time. We do all need to get out of the house. Like, I don't like today. Dave and I are going to go to a fundraiser. We're going to get out for a little while. We are getting our COVID boosters today. I think that makes number 6, but we have been very fortunate. Dave had it once. I've had it twice. Once in the somewhat beginning, and then let's see, not this past summer, but the summer before I had it. And I do believe that because of the booster, because of the COVID shots, I had a mild flu-like version of it. So we are going to do that today. So we are getting out of the house, even if it's for an injection of COVID booster and a fundraiser. But you got to get out of the house once in a while. And you might as well make it something fun if you're going to get out of the house once in a while. Right. You know? To be 24/7 in my house, although I'm like 22/7 at this point. I leave for like doctor's appointments and the occasional fun thing. It's just my life now, So, but speaking of houses, just a quick update. Last week we talked about my friend Stephanie, who just moved into a new house, was having some issues with paranormal activity.
Yep.
And so I was it last week or the week before? I can't remember. So I checked in with her during the week this week and asked her how everything was going. And she informed me that she did everything I said. She set her boundaries. She laid down the ground rules. She got some selenite and she's going to do all that. And she talked to whoever was in the house. We threw around some ideas of who it might be. And she said that everything has calmed down considerably.
Good.
So that is very, very good news. I think the important thing to remember is that you really can be in control of a situation if you don't, let your nervousness get to be too much. You have to, I know it's hard, especially it's easy for me to say because I run to the things. I run to them because this is what I do, who I am. But it's easy to say that, I know, because if you've never really experienced it before, you can watch it on TV all the time. But when it's happening to you, it's a little bit different. But it's just important to remember that, this is your home. This is your home. And you can set the boundaries. You don't have to necessarily kick them out, but you set your boundaries. You give them the ground rules and you be confident about it. And a lot of times that will calm things down quite a bit.
Yeah.
So just very happy to hear that she's doing better. I told her if she needs me at any time with anything, Dave and I'd be happy to come out, but I don't think at this point she needs it.
Yeah.
She did say that she looked up the family that built the house, and that they had very good memories in the house and everything. So if it was this lady, she probably just wanted to come back and
hang out.
Yeah. She loved her home so much, and that's far from evil, and there can be mutual respect there and everybody can live happily ever after. So very glad to see that. So that was very good.
Cool.
So quick update. So let's do something really fun for Ghostober, Todd, before we wrap up this week. I found on livescience.com their idea of the 11 most haunted places in the United States.
Okay.
All right. So let's go down the list and let's see how many we've been to. I was kind of laughing to myself when I was going through this list because I've been to several. All right. Number 1, speaking of it, Waverly Hills Sanatorium. The edge of Louisville, Kentucky, it was built in 1910 to treat victims of tuberculosis, which was also considered the White Plague that was ravaging the country for years and years and years, and been the subject of numerous ghost hunting shows over the years, websites, all kinds of stories. And so that's one of the 11. You've never been to that, have
Never
you?
been, no.
No. I would go. I would do it, but it's not something that I'm not a huge fan of group ghost hunts with people that I don't know.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Yep.
Because I feel like in order to really dig in and understand and get value out of an investigation, you really should know people and have good chemistry. Yeah, it's a team thing.
Right.
And I think it's part of the reason why when you and I are together, we have such success, because we trust each other deeply. Apps, Adirondack Park Paranormal Society, that we belong to. When we all do investigations, they work. It's the chemistry amongst the people, the trust amongst the people. Number 2, the New Jersey Pine Barrens. Now, it's a lot of people have kind of heard of it, but don't know much about it. I asked Dave about it because Dave actually was born in Brooklyn, but when he was 15, they moved to New Jersey. And so he spent several years in New Jersey, went to college, and he doesn't really know too much about it. But again, that's Dave, because, So the New Jersey Pine Barrens are a vast forested region now known as the New Jersey Pine Barrens. They thrived in the colonial period when it was home to several sawmills, paper mills, and towns for the people who worked in them. But its prosperity and population declined sharply when coal was discovered in nearby Pennsylvania and people moved there instead. So there are several ghost towns found throughout the Pine Barrens. More than a few ghost stories go with it. The spirit of the pirate Captain William Kidd, or Billy the Kid, who Captain William Kidd, who frequented New Jersey's Barnegat Bay, has sometimes been seen there, and a ghostly black dog is said to roam the beaches and the forests of the coast. One of the most famous supernatural stories of the Pine Barrens is the tale of the Jersey Devil. According to the state of New Jersey, the creature was born in 1735 as the 13th child of Deborah Leeds, the wife of a rival of Benjamin Franklin, who may have contributed to the tale. Some versions of the story say she was a witch and that the father of the child was a devil himself. According to the legend, the baby was born with leathery wings, a goat's head, and hooves. It reportedly flew up the chimney of the room where it was born and has been killing livestock in the region ever since. By the late 1700s, what was then known as the Leeds Devil had become a popular ghost story in the southern New Jersey area, and by the 19th century, it had grown into a local legend. So It's the Jersey Devil. And that's the hockey team, the Jersey Devils.
Right.
Is named after that. All right, number 3, big one here. Been here, Savannah, Georgia. Have you been to Savannah?
Have not been to Savannah.
We should go some year. We should do that as like we'll meet you guys and everything.
Yeah.
Couple of big cemeteries in the Savannah, Georgia area. I mean, I got to tell you, I've been there twice. The entire city of Savannah is basically active. Back in the early days of settlement, there was I think it was typhoid epidemic there. And they basically just buried people in the ground and then built the city over them. So
that'll do it.
Pretty much every part of the old part of the city has bodies still underground there. And there's 2 cemeteries that are really well known. The first is Bonaventure Cemetery. Dave and I went to that. And we also, one of the most famous graves in Bonaventure. And let me tell you, your stereotypical, like, scary looking, ethereal, just everything you can think of that a cemetery stereotypically looks like is here at Bonaventure. It's hauntingly beautiful is the way I look at it. It's got the moss
Yeah.
That hangs from the trees and oh my God, it's just amazing. Absolutely amazing. It's just kept up enough so that it's not overgrown, but it's not what they would consider well manicured per se, because they do things a little bit differently in the South than they do in the North, or, if you go out West, you see their cemeteries look a lot different than they do in other parts of the country. It's, and Gracie Watson is perhaps the most famous grave there, or one of the most famous. Dave and I did visit her. She was 6 years old. She died of pneumonia in 1889, and her ghost is said to haunt the life-size statue that stands over her grave, which, like several other funerarial, is that how you say it? Statues in the cemetery are sometimes said to move as if they were alive, while the sounds of children playing or crying is sometimes heard nearby. Didn't experience any of that, but I will say it's an absolutely beautiful statue, beautiful grave. They have they were afraid people were going to get into it, so they did put a gate around it, and so now there's a gate around the actual statue monument. But it is very beautiful. So we wandered all through that cemetery. Absolutely gorgeous. The most famous haunted house in Savannah is probably the Sorrel Weed House, which appeared in the opening shots of the 1994 film Forrest Gump, which, by the way, we did a tour of Savannah, I think the first time we went down, and the bench is still there that they filmed the movie at, and that's pretty neat too. And we got to see where at the beginning of the movie where they had the feather floating down. They dropped it from the top of one of the buildings, and you could see that and everything. I just thought that was pretty neat.
That's interesting.
But the Sorrel Weed House is said to be haunted by at least two vengeful ghosts, the wife and the rival lover of shipping merchant Francis Sorrel, who built the house in the 1840s. Francis's wife, Matilda Sorrel, allegedly jumped to her death when she discovered her husband's infidelity. And then the second cemetery is Colonial Park Cemetery, which is interesting because it's extremely, extremely old. Part of it is a cemetery and part of it is a park. And it kind of just blends into the park area. And they've done a great job over the years because it's really old. Like, they have some walkways in the cemetery that are cement and everything. But the interesting, really cool thing about this cemetery, well, there are a couple. There are about 800 bodies buried in this one area that doesn't have any stones on it.
Yeah, of course.
And they were TB victims.
Yep.
And there's a beautiful monument, like a placard there about them. But there's also a lot of, over the years, when a gravestone would fall down or something, instead of fixing it, like, they just lean it against the wall on the side of the cemetery. So when you go, I'll see if I can find my pictures and I'll post them. It's so cool. When you go, the whole one wall of the cemetery, which is next to the police department, by the way, the whole one wall is filled with gravestones just set up along the wall. There's like 2 levels of them. And a third cool thing is, so you don't know where these people are buried because their stones are against the wall.
Right.
And the third cool thing is that during the Civil War, the soldiers encamped in Colonial Park Cemetery. And it's not funny, but it is. And they messed with some of the gravestones. So in the old days, they would say, okay, Joe Smith died at 58 years, 6 months, and 28 days.
Right.
Well, they would etch in a 1 in front of that. So it says he was 158 years old, 6 months, and 28 days. And so if you're really sharp-eyed, you can pick out a whole bunch of them that are completely wrong. Like, things are completely changed on them because I guess if you're a soldier in the Civil War and you're in camp there and you don't have much else to do.
You fuck around?
You fuck around. You're messing around with everybody's, with dead people's stones, apparently. So it's an interesting place that that Savannah, Georgia. I'm in love with it. I am absolutely in love with Savannah, Georgia. So many other stories that I could tell, but just do yourself a favor if you're bored and go Google Savannah, Georgia ghosts and haunted places, because it's like the entire city. So number 4, Bachelor's Grove Cemetery. And we talked about Bachelor's Grove enough over the seasons here, so everybody knows about Bachelor's Grove, Midlothian, Illinois. About if there was no traffic, you could get there in probably a half hour. But traffic wise, it's about 50 minutes to get down to Midlothian from Chicago.
Yeah.
And always wanted to go there. Didn't really even understand why I wanted to go there, but I did. And we all know what happened when I did go. So that's, I don't disbelieve the stories there. I believe there's a lot that goes on there, and it's not just in the cemetery itself. But when I was there, the prevailing feeling that I picked up on, and I didn't bring any equipment with me purposely because I wanted to just feel the cemetery, was really just sadness. And I felt like I think it was more that I felt the sadness maybe of the visitors who visited over the years, but of the people who were buried there. They were so disrespected over the years.
Yeah.
And I just picked up on that feeling. It was like it was almost a peaceful sadness. It was just like they've reserved themselves to the idea that, I mean, even today, they've done a great job of keeping up, of trying to fix the cemetery up and stuff. But even today, there's leftover vandalism from the years before, and it just makes me really sad.
If you want to see how secluded it is, go to Google Maps and look up Bachelor's Grove Cemetery, and you look at it and you go, well, how did you even get there? Because it's really secluded. When
we went, I was a little concerned because until we actually got there and I was Googling how to get in there, I wasn't 100% sure.
Yeah.
Because you have to park you can't park on the side of the road, and it's gated off. So back when when the cemetery was started, it was actually more populated. There were some houses in the woods around there and everything, but not anymore. And it used to be an old turnpike. It used to be right on a turnpike, but they closed that off. And so you have to park at the Rubio Woods parking area across the street and play Frogger across the highway there to get to the entrance, and you have to walk in. And it's about, I would say, a little less than a half a mile back in, and it's very, very isolated.
Yeah.
Very isolated. And you're not that far from the road. Like when you look out one side, you can see the infamous pond that's there. And then right on the other side of the pond, you can see cars going by.
Right.
But the isolation that you feel perhaps is more isolating than where you actually are. But you have to walk in quite a bit to get there. And it's actually beautiful in there.
If you didn't, like, for instance, if you look at a map on Google Maps, if you didn't have one of those little pins there saying Bachelor's Grove Cemetery, you would not be able to find it on the map.
Yeah.
It's
small.
Yeah.
It's small. Like everybody has something in their head, a vision of what they think something will look like that they've never been to. And when you get there, it's either you're pretty close or you're not close at all. It's very small. Like, and not all of the graves have stones on them. And I don't think all of the graves actually have people buried there either. And some stones have been moved around. So where you think you're visiting somebody, they're actually on the other side of the cemetery because vandals have come in and moved them around.
Yeah, it's so sad.
Yeah, and it's a very sad place. There's a lot of energy there. And again, I didn't notice anything other than what I picked up as sensitive as an empath. I didn't see any light orbs or dog people or the horse and cart that people see or the house that disappears. I didn't see any of that. But what I did pick up on was just this sadness, this almost like we've reserved ourselves to the fact that we've been disrespected.
Yeah.
That just heavy sadness that was there. I did try to take a picture there's a famous picture there of a woman sitting on one of the stones with kind of her chin in her hand. I did take a couple different angles. I did the exact angle of the picture and still didn't get anything. But it was really, I would say it was something bucket list that I'm so glad that I did. And we all know the story of how it actually is connected to where I live.
Right.
And how I now have, it sounds silly, but I kind of have a rapport with one of the men who's buried there with his family because they're from where I am. And we go to visit their grave and we talk to them and they talk back to us. And, you know, we kind of have a rapport with this family now. So just an amazing place. If you can go. It's worth the, you know, few hours that it takes you to go down, visit, and then drive back. Just amazing. All right, moving on. Here's yours. The Stanley Hotel.
Oh, yeah. Interesting place. Not sure if I ever really picked anything up there. Did group investigation, like you said. Some interesting stuff was reported to have happened, but I never really had a lot happen there. It's still just a really great location. And even if it wasn't haunted, that part of the United States is really beautiful. Just get used to having a slight headache because of the elevation of it.
Revelation.
Yeah, the revelation of the elevation of it. If you're not from that area, you will definitely have a headache during that time.
Well, and just the fact that Stephen King was there.
Absolutely.
That's pretty cool. And the fact that the elk walk all over the place, it's just beautiful. I think that's one place we also threw around for meeting up for vacation sometime. Yep. All right, moving on. Big one. We've both been here. You just showed a memory on Facebook recently. New Orleans.
Yeah.
New Orleans. I mean, do we even have to go into that one? Come on. I mean, that place is just absolutely incredible. One thing I always wanted to do. Now, we went to St. Louis Cemetery number 1, and we did the tour. Nowadays, you can't just go in there. You have to take a tour to be able to get in there. We did take the tour. I don't know if you had to back then. We were there in, I think, 2010. But just fascinating place. One thing I always wanted to do if I ever went to New Orleans was to go stand at the La Laurie House, which I did go stand at the La Laurie House. It was amazing to see it in person because, I mean, it's very, very well known for being disgustingly haunted. And so I did get to do that and go to St. Louis number 1. I got to hang out at Marie Laveau's grave, all that cool stuff. But just the whole atmosphere of New Orleans is absolutely amazing. Yes,
agreed.
Yeah, really, really cool place. Another place we should meet up sometime. We'll just go down this list and meet up at all of them.
Okay.
Number 7, Gettysburg. Gettysburg goes without saying. We all know the Gettysburg experiences. We got to get you to Gettysburg one of these days.
I would like to go and have more than just the T-shirt.
Okay, I'll get you a hoodie next time. You would be in love with Gettysburg. I tell you this all the time, but you would be in love with like I am. It's just amazing. So, and that's an easier one. We could fly you into, you know, I don't know what's called. Philadelphia is probably, I don't know. Or actually Washington, D.C. We could fly you into, I think, Dulles.
I would rather drive. I would rather drive.
For us, it's about 5.5 hours. I'll have to look it up and see what it is for you. Maybe that would be a cool one to do. Number 8. Another good one, St. Augustine Lighthouse. Dave and I did that in 2013. That was phenomenal. Got some really cool stuff. Biggest advice there is if you see something on TV and you want to go check it out when you get there, if you have to take a tour to get into it, kind of, if they let you break off a little bit, kind of go to the place where everybody else isn't going because you're more likely to get some kind of feeling or activity if you do something like that. So, number 9, the Whaley House in San Diego. The home was built in 1857 on the site of a former graveyard and gallows. Over the years, it served as a family home, a grain store, the San Diego County Courthouse, the city's first commercial theater, a ballroom, a billiard hall, and a school. And it opened as a museum in 1960. The most famous there is Indian Jim, who apparently was hung there. at the gallows and is said to haunt. And that's where the infamous on the Holzer files, Dave Schrader was pushed
over.
down.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah. Yep. All right, number 10, the White House. We've all heard the stories of the ghosts of the White House over the years. Mary Todd Lincoln was actually a huge believer in the paranormal. And I think she was supposedly held some seances in the White House.
Mary Todd, huh?
Mary Todd Lincoln. And so that's famously, they say Lincoln's ghost is there as well. And number 11, this is a great one. Never thought of it this way, but New England covered bridges. Covered bridges tend to be the subject of many, many haunting ghost stories. And New England has plenty of covered bridges. Dave and I have visited several because we like to go to Vermont and New Hampshire and, Massachusetts. And so we try to visit some covered bridges. Never been to one that was haunted before, I don't think. But there tend to be several stories of haunted bridges throughout mostly the Northeast that people talk about. So I was kind of surprised to see that make the list, but not surprised at the same time. So that's your 11, according to livescience.com, that's your 11 most haunted places in the United States. I have been to the New Jersey Pine Barrens, but not in the Pine Barrens. I mean, it's kind of a region. So,
right.
So I'm not going to count that, but I've been to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I've been to 6 of the 11.
Very nice.
Yeah. So just thought that would be fun for Ghostober. I'd love to know how many anybody else has been to. So if you guys want to shoot us an email or message us on our page or in our group, let us know how many of those 11 you've been to. I'm kind of curious. Maybe we'll take a poll. So I guess this is a good time for our spiel.
You can find the Sandy and Toddcast on any of the platforms that you normally find your podcasts, including YouTube and Twitter. Be sure to like the Sandy and Toddcast on Facebook to keep up on the latest goings-on, including each week's episode. You can also join our group, Stay Weirdos, friends of the Sandy and Toddcast, for more fun. Stay Weirdos is a safe place to share your thoughts, feelings, ideas, and random inappropriate memes without judgment. Sandy and Todd also have a podcast called the Empathecary Podcast. It's for empaths, by empaths. And if you know an empath, you might want to listen too. Find and like the page on Facebook. And finally, if you're thinking about starting your own podcast and just aren't sure where to start, Sandy and Todd can also help with that too. Mindgarden Media is their latest project where the dynamic duo can guide you every step of the way in your podcasting journey. Editing, producing, and consulting is what they do. Like Mindgarden Media on Facebook or email them at themindgardenmedia@gmail.com. And as always, thanks for staying weird.
And another Ghostober episode is in the books.
Random Ghostober shit.
I like random Ghostober. That's...
I think we'll name that. I think we'll name this one Random Ghostober Stuff.
Okay.
I'm not going to say it on the...
Yeah, probably don't want to do that.
So I love this time of year. It's my favorite. I don't mind the cool weather. I hate the cold weather that we get. But I just really love this time of year. I don't like pumpkin of any kind, but I like hot chocolate. So I'll take it.
Works for me too. All right. Well, I guess until next week, we'll just say bye.
Bye.